So, folks, let's understand the ramifications of this in terms of the power structure of the sport and how it's going to be covered. So, the Big Ten and the SEC get the best TV ratings by far. If you look at the top 10 games every year, they're owned by the SEC and the Big Ten almost exclusively. Okay, so the Big Ten is a enormous property. And regardless of what we have all perceived, and over the last 5 to 6 years since the Big Ten has been more aligned with Fox, and Fox aligned with the Big Ten network and showing most of the larger Big Ten games, there has still been an alternating selection of games. So ABC/ESPN has selected the second most coveted Big Ten game and the fourth most coveted and the sixth most coveted. So there have always been marquee games, even though Fox has taken over primary rights to the Big Ten. The Big Ten has still had a major impact on ESPN with games like we will see in week 1. Ohio State, Notre Dame. That is considered a Big Ten game because it's in the home of a Big Ten school. And so that's a Big Ten selection by ABC/ESPN. That was their number one selection of the season. That goes away for the first time since the early 80s. No ESPN and the Big Ten since 1966. ABC and the Big Ten no longer are attached. So to extend on that, it's going to be interesting, Matt, because ESPN, although the perception has been, and the perception is largely reality, that the ESPN has given favor to the SEC because, of course, they built an SEC network and they didn't have to share with the SEC with anyone, excluding a primary CBS 3:30 game, and once in a while, like twice a year, a double header on CBS. That ESPN has shown all the SEC games and again built a network for the SEC 6 or 7 years ago. That now they've always had every major conference under contract. They've actually had all the conferences, all 10 of them under contract. This will be the first time that there's been a break, that ESPN and Fox are completely at odds, and the Big Ten no longer being covered by ESPN. Not saying that they're not going to show highlights and talk about the Big Ten. They certainly can't ignore it, but still, you would think that this is going to greatly impact ESPN's coverage of the Big Ten, and therefore Fox may also take its side that they're going to cover the sport in the best interest of its partners.
Oh, no question about it. There's absolutely no doubt about it. Like, we're going to see College Gameday at far fewer Big Ten locations in the coming years. I mean, like, there's just, because Fox will put up a studio there. So, that there's just no reason for ESPN to really chase the Big Ten in terms of covering all that. And of course, you're going to have Texas and Oklahoma in the SEC. So like, Game Day can go to Oklahoma as an SEC venue, like that's how it can kind of expand the reach of where it goes to for Game Day and yet keep it within the SEC umbrella. Another key point along media coverage of the Big Ten and the SEC, Stuart Mandel tweeted out something really good. He said in a tweet, he kind of mapped out the scheduling that in 2024, in the noon window, you're going to have Fox's Big Noon Saturday against an SEC number 3 game of the week. 12:30, you're going to have that CBS Big Ten game against the number 2 SEC game of the week. And then you're going to have the NBC number 2 Big Ten game of the week, or Notre Dame in prime time against the SEC number 1 game of the week. So basically, ESPN, ABC with the SEC, and Fox with the Fox, CBS, and NBC, that Big Ten alliance. They're going to line up the 3 best games of the week in the SEC and the Big Ten on those regular season Saturdays in October and November. That's going to be the steady content diet. And now, what this brings up, a couple things. First off, if I'm the ACC or the Big 12, what I would do is I'm trying to make a push for breakfast football. Now, I've been a longtime advocate in breakfast football, and now with Fox and ESPN being able to line up those traditional windows, noon, 3:30, 7:30, with the top 3 SEC and Big Ten games of the week starting in 2024, the Big 12 and ACC should try to play games at 10 a.m. Eastern, to 11 a.m. Eastern before those waves of big SEC and Big Ten games. So that the Big 12 and the ACC, they should try to play at breakfast. And then the Pac 12, of course, you have the late night game. And then the other point to make here is that this increases, in my mind, the likelihood that we're going to see a TV deal between the Pac 12 and the ACC, where they schedule lots of games between each other, and ESPN can have ACC teams playing at Pac 12 sites in the late window and put that on ACC network. So to make better use of the ACC network, increase the value of that property, and enrich the television dollars for ACC schools who are all upset at the current contractual arrangement they have with ESPN. So that is a natural way for ESPN to sweeten the pot for the ACC and give the Pac-12 more dollars. With, Pac-12 network is likely to be it's not going to necessarily be extinguished, because the Pac-12 network will always be there for the Olympic sports in the Pac-12, but you're going to see Pac-12 football content migrate from Pac-12 network to ACC network and other parts of the ESPN umbrella. I think that's also a likely outcome of all this.
I had the same thought about breakfast football. I didn't think of that term, though. That's a good one. Breakfast football. People typically, because they're working people Monday through Friday, wake up a little bit later on Saturday, and you're kicking around. And even if you're a casual fan that's going to be doing other things, taking a hike or going to the beach later, you can start watching some football at 10 o'clock in the morning. And then you drive a foothold, because I think we've all been there, that even if we're anticipating a better game later, if we start watching a game earlier because we just want to watch football, and we get involved in that game and it's a good game, thinking, okay, now, you know what? I'll miss the first quarter of the next game because the first quarter doesn't matter that much. Might stick around to watch the ACC play a 10 a.m. game that leaks into the broadcast window at noon.
Yeah, I mean, if Pittsburgh and Virginia play a shootout in Charlottesville at 10 a.m. and it's 28-27 at halftime, you're going to stick around for the second half of that game. I mean, unless it's Ohio State, Michigan, but that's only in late November. But on most Saturdays, unless the Fox's big noon game really gets hot very early, you're going to want to stick around for the end of that Pitt Virginia shootout, which starts at 10 a.m. and is going to end at 1:30. And this is something, Mark, you and I really haven't talked about this in the Voice of College Football, but it has always struck me how we have these standardized windows, and that a sport as diverse as college football should be televising its games in different windows, because you have so many different conferences, so many different teams, so many different regions. Why is it that we don't have a regular 1:30 Eastern game of the week? Why is it that we don't have a regular 5 p.m. Eastern game of the week? Those are the in-between windows. You have your 9 and your noon and your 3:30. Why don't we have your 1:30 and 5 on a more regular basis? Well, now with, the ESPN and Fox building these, mega conferences with all these traditional names pulled into these two silos, this is exactly why the ACC, Big 12, and Pac-12 should now be thinking of, let's explore the untraditional game windows on Saturdays. Thursday, Friday, that's still minor league. You want to be on Saturday, but let's just get into different time windows and give ESPN a chance to own more of the real estate each Saturday. Now, obviously, big ESPN is going to air College Gameday, but ESPN2, ESPNU, that's still pretty decent distribution for a game that starts at 10 a.m. Eastern, and people would love to watch their football. So this is exactly the opportunity that the ACC and the Big 12 need to pounce on.